Personally, I think that Fire Lord Izumi's mother, aka Zuko's daughter's mother, could have been anyone. I know that doesn't sound like an original theory, but if we consider the reality of royal palaces back in the day, it was very normal for kings to have many concubines, and we haven't really seen so much of that in the Avatar universe, I don't believe. I can't really remember too well, but I don't think we've seen too much of that. But Zuko might have had like several concubines and women in the palace that maybe he was with, and maybe just one of them ended up giving birth to his daughter, Fire Lord Azumi. Or, or Izumi's mother could be May, or Fire Lord Izumi's mother could just be a surrogate. Maybe Zuko just decided he wanted a woman to act as a surrogate, and he got his sperm and you know like she carried his child, and that's how Izumi was born. So I think that those are the ways that Fire Lord Izumi would have been born or could have been born. Her mother really could have been anyone for in any circumstance. But we do know that Fire Lord Izumi is actually pretty old, a lot older than Tenzin or Lin or really any of them. So she was probably born very early on in Fire Lord Zuko's reign. And also, I wanted to add one more note about Fire Lord Sozin, also, who is, of course, Izumi's great great grandfather. Now, it does say that Fire Lord Azulon was born when Fire Lord Sozin was like 82, and so Fire Lord Sozin had Fire Lord Azulon when he was really really old, because Azulon was about 95 when he died, and Azulon died. Fire Lord Azulon died 5 years before the events of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And of course, Avatar: The Last Airbender takes place 100 years after the Erewhonite genocide. So Fire Lord Azulon was born around the time Fire Lord Sozin was starting the Hundred-Year War. And we know that Fire Lord Sozin was 82 years old because Fire Lord Sozin was 16 years old in the youngest flashback we got of him when he was playing with Avatar Roku and they were best friends and stuff. And of course, 12 years passed because Roku spent 4 years mastering each of the elements. Roku spent 4 years with air, 4 years with water, 4 years with earth. And so by the time he got back 12 years later, 12 years after being 16, he was 28. And of course, after that, when he was 45 years old, when Roku and Sozin were both 45 years old, remember they have the same birthday. When Roku and Sozin were 45 years old, they had their fight, and Roku pretty much humiliated Sozin. And then 25 years after that, when Roku was 70, and Sozin was also 70, volcano erupted, and Roku ended up dying in that volcano because Sozin left him there. And we know that Aang disappeared when he was 12, and that's when the Erewhonite genocide happened. And obviously, Aang was born right as Roku dies because that's how the Avatar cycle works. And so, 12 years after that, so 70 plus 12, Sozin was 70 when Roku died. So, 12 years later, Sozin would have been 82. And that, as I said, that's when Azulon was born. So, Sozin was 82 years old when his son was born. And so, personally, obviously, I think most fans would agree that maybe they just, sort of messed up the timeline a little bit. Forgot that Sozin was supposed to be so old, and it's probably similar to what they did with Avatar Kyoshi and how they made her like 230 years old, and that was just a mistake in the timeline, but they just ran with it because they just put it there, so whatever. And I think it's fine with Kyoshi, like her being 230 years old, whatever. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's pretty cool, but it's not really a big deal. So I do think that initially Sozin's age was just another oversight, but at the same time, I also believe that it's just like real life too, because there are people in real life who have children when they're 75 and 70, like they become fathers when they're 75 and 70. Obviously, it's harder with mothers to become at that age because women have to give birth, so they might not be able to give birth at age 70 or 75. But it does appear that men can become fathers at really alarming ages. Like there are many older fathers out there. And so, for instance, President John Tyler of the United States, his son gave birth to a son when he was 75 years old. So 75-year-old Mr. Tyler had a son when he was 75. Whereas John Tyler had like 16 children throughout his life, and he had, I think, his last child when he was like 70 years old. So, I mean, look, and I've also heard about a 27-year-old who had a 91-year-old father, and all that's so. Yeah, people can become fathers at any age. So to think that Sozin could become a father at 82, like obviously that it's certainly possible in real life, and it does happen in real life. So it ended up working. That's all I have for this video. Subscribe, share, review. Make sure my channel gets more views than it is getting now because I'm not getting enough views right now.